Imagine this. My nosy HOA neighbor called the cops on me for draining my own pool. This woman, Patricia, strutted into my backyard like it was her personal kingdom and announced, "Not a questioner demand," as if my private oasis was her community playground. When I shut her down, she lost it. So I took it up a notch. I hired a crew to drain every single drop of water. Gone, empty, bone dry. She went ballistic, live streaming, herself dialing 911, shrieking about environmental hazards. Trust me, you're in for the wildest HOA saga yet, and it's 100% real. Which city in the United States are you watching from? Drop a comment and share with us if you've had any confrontation with the HOA. We'll narrate your story on our channel. It was a perfect Saturday at 3 p.m., and I was lounging by my pool, laptop open, sketching blueprints for a client. This was why I bought this house, a tranquil haven to think and create. The water shimmered a brilliant blue, casting playful reflections that danced in the afternoon sun. I'd only owned this place for 6 months, and every day I pinched myself. This backyard paradise was mine after years of cramped apartments and relentless saving. Then the metal gate screeched open. In marched Patricia Morrison, my across-the-street neighbor, early 50s. Dressed to impress, even for a casual drop-by, radiating that queen bee confidence honed from years of ruling the neighborhood. "David, the pool looks beautiful as always," she said, her smile tight. Something about her bold entrance felt eerily familiar, like she'd already claimed my space as her own, like she wasn't seeing it for the first time. "Thanks, Patricia. What can I do for you?" I closed my laptop, certain I must be about to hear another request to join the neighborhood book club or contribute to some community fundraiser. Patricia had a reputation for organizing everything in our subdivision. "Oh, I come, bearing wonderful news. Madison, my daughter, is turning 18 next week, and I've already told her she can have her birthday party at your pool." She said this like she was giving me a gift, her voice bright and cheerful, but there was something underneath it, something desperate. I set my laptop down slowly, sure I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what did you just say? Next Saturday, just a few dozen people. Nothing crazy." Patricia moved closer, her hand gripping the back of the chair where I was sitting. Her fingers were perfectly manicured but pressing down hard enough to leave marks in the cushion. "I already sent out the invitations. Put your address and everything. The kids are so excited." My mind was racing. She'd already sent invitations to my house without asking Patricia. "I appreciate you thinking of me, but don't worry about the costs. I'll handle everything. You just need to unlock the gate." She patted my shoulder, and her fingers squeezed like talons. The touch lasted a beat too long, possessive rather than friendly. "We're a community here. Neighbors help neighbors. That's what makes this place special. I understand the community aspect, but there's the issue of liability. If someone gets hurt on my property." I tried to keep my voice reasonable, professional as an architect. I understood liability issues better than most. One accident, one drowning, and I could lose everything I'd worked for. Patricia's smile flickered off. Like someone had hit a switch, her whole demeanor shifted, and suddenly I was looking at a completely different person. "You know, the people who lived here before, they understood sharing, they understood community." The words came out bitter, almost accusatory. It was such a strange thing to say. She looked around the yard again, but this time her gaze lingered on specific spots. Her eyes had a far-away quality, like she was seeing ghosts. "Madison," She loves that hibiscus tree. When she was little, she used to mind. The point is, this neighborhood has traditions. I'm truly sorry, but my answer is no. I stood up, making it clear the conversation was ending. This is private property, and I'm not comfortable with the liability issues. I'm sure you can find another venue. Patricia stared at me, and all pretense of neighborly friendliness evaporated. Her face hardened into something cold and calculating. You know what, David? This neighborhood has a certain way of doing things, and we don't say no to each other, especially not to me. The threat in her voice was unmistakable. Is that supposed to be a threat? I kept my voice level, but inside alarm bells were ringing. This was escalating far beyond a simple party request. It's advice, friendly advice from someone who's lived here for 18 years. She turned to leave, her heels clicking sharply on the concrete. You should reconsider. Trust me, you don't want to be the outsider in this neighborhood. We have ways of making people uncomfort. Patricia paused at the gate, her hand on the latch. She turned back with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Oh, David, that's a beautiful pool you have there. It would be such a shame if something happened to it. The gate slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing across the water. I stood there, trying to process what had just happened in 6 months of living here. A little pushy about her community events, but harmless. This version of her threatening, possessive, almost unhinged about a simple pool party made no sense unless there was something more going on here. The way she'd looked at my yard, the way she'd mentioned the previous owners, that strange comment about Madison and the hibiscus tree, it all added up to something. But what? And that's when I realized she wasn't just looking at my pool. The way she'd studied every corner, touched the furniture, stared at that hibiscus tree. It was like she was looking at memories. But whose memories? And why did she seem so desperate to get back into this yard? What happened next would shock the entire neighborhood. Drop a comment. What would you do? Type pool if you think she'll try to use it anyway. Or type war if you think she's planning something worse. Because what Patricia did next went beyond anything I could have imagined. Monday morning, 7:00 a.m. I opened my front door to grab the newspaper and froze in complete shock. Pink flyers everywhere, taped to every light pole, stuck on every trash can, plastered on car windshields, even stapled to trees. The entire neighborhood was painted pink with Patricia's Lies Community Pool Party, Madison Morrison's 18th birthday at David Mitchell's house, and then my actual address printed in bold letters. Everyone's invited by Obi. Thanks to our generous neighbor, David, for opening his home. I ripped one down, my hands shaking with anger. How dare she? But as I looked closer, I noticed something even worse. At the bottom in smaller print, proceeds from drink sales benefit the HOA Community Fund. She wasn't just hijacking my pool. She was planning to make money off it. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Kim, was outside watering her plants, beaming at me with a huge smile. David, dear, arm with genuine warmth. You know, in 30 years living here, I've never seen anyone do something so kind. Mrs. Kim, I didn't agree to this. Patricia made this up. There's no party at my house. I tried to keep the frustration out of my voice. Mrs. Kim was sweet, and this wasn't her fault. Her face fell. Oh, but the flyer says. And Patricia told everyone at church yesterday that you were thrilled to host. Before I could respond, my phone started buzzing. Email notification. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, my inbox was exploding, from Patricia Morrison to entire HOA mailing list, all 47 households. Subject: pool party this Saturday. David's generosity. The email was a masterpiece of manipulation. She gushed about my enthusiasm and community spirit. She mentioned how I'd supposedly said, Patricia, anything for the community. But the worst part was the attachment. A screenshot of a text message conversation. David M. Sure, Patricia. Use my pool anytime. Happy to help. The contact photo was even my actual photo from social media, but it was completely fake. The font was wrong. The phone number showing was off by 2 digits, and I'd never sent that message. Anyone looking closely would spot the forgery, but who looks closely at a screenshot? I hit reply all immediately. This is false. I never sent that text. I explicitly told Patricia, no, the party is not happening at my house. That screenshot is fabricated. Please do not come to my property. My response was clear, professional, and left no room for interpretation. Patricia's reply came within 5 minutes. Also reply all, oh David, I understand you're feeling overwhelmed. First-time party hosting jitters are totally normal, everyone. Some support. See you all Saturday. My phone exploded. The neighborhood group chat that I had been added 2 months ago lit up like a Christmas tree. Carl Johnson dude really said yes, then changed his mind. Not cool, Jennifer. Woo. My kids were so excited. They already bought Madison a present. Mike Thompson classic. Social anxiety poor. David probably regretted saying yes and now doesn't know how to back out. Patricia jumped in. I'm heartbroken. Madison actually cried when I told her David might cancel, but I have faith he'll do the right thing after all. Isn't community what makes Willowbrook special? The gaslighting was incredible. She turned me into the bad guy who was crushing a teenager's birthday dreams. My young neighbor, Jake, sent me a private message. Bro, heads up. Patricia's been telling everyone you're having a mental health crisis since moving in. Said you work from home too much, and it's making you paranoid. She actually used the word unstable. I checked my social media. The friend list was shrinking in real time. 12 unfriend notifications and counting. People I'd had barbecues with, shared beers with, were cutting me off based on Patricia's lies. The social assassination was swift and brutal. That afternoon my doorbell rang. Carl stood there with 5 other neighbors, all looking concerned. Hey man, Carl said in that fake, casual tone people use when they're staging an intervention. We just wanted to check on you, make sure you're okay. Behind him, Jennifer Wu nodded sympathetically. Mike Thompson looked uncomfortable, and 3 others I barely knew stared at me like I was a zoo animal. I'm fine. Carl, Patricia lied about me agreeing to host the party. It's that simple. I kept my voice steady, but inside I was seething. How had she turned the entire neighborhood against me in less than 48 hours? Look, we get it. Liability and all that legal stuff. Carl glanced back at the others, like they'd rehearsed this, but Patricia's done. So much for this neighborhood. She organized the 4th of July block party for 15 years. She runs the community garage sales. When Jennifer's mom was sick, Patricia coordinated meal deliveries for 2 months. Can't you just help her out this once? She fabricated evidence that I agreed to something I explicitly refused. That's not a misunderstanding. That's fraud. I couldn't believe I had to explain this to grown adults. See, Carl turned to the others. He's using words like fraud about a birthday party. This is exactly what Patricia was worried about. They all nodded knowingly, and I realized with a chill that Patricia had prepped them for exactly this response. After they left, I noticed Patricia in her front yard talking to a delivery driver. She was signing for packages, and when she saw me watching, she quickly moved them behind her back, but I caught a glimpse of the return address label. It looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. She gave me a little wave, that same fake smile, plastered on her face. Before hurrying inside that evening, I was checking my evening mail and found an official-looking envelope. My stomach dropped as I read it. Notice of emergency HOA meeting, Wednesday, 7:00 p.m. Topic: Community, Spirit, and Neighbor Relations. Attendance mandatory for all homeowners. Failure to attend may result in fines. 47 neighbors. One conference room, and I was clearly the target. The meeting notice might as well have had my name in the subject line, but while everyone was focused on the party drama, I'd spent the evening doing my own research. What I discovered about Patricia Morrison made everything suddenly make sense. Type, oh my God, if you want to know the shocking secret I uncovered. Because the truth about Patricia was darker than anyone imagined, and the meeting was about to expose a plot twist that would change everything. Wednesday, 7 p.m. I arrived at the HOA meeting 5 minutes late on purpose, hoping to slip in quietly, but Patricia had anticipated this move. The conference room, designed for 50 people, was packed with over 75 neighbors, and they'd saved one seat for me right in the center, surrounded by Patricia's inner circle of supporters. It was like walking into a tribunal where I was the only one on trial. David, we saved you a seat. Patricia waved enthusiastically, her smile sharp as a knife. She was dressed like she was going to a business meeting. Powers, suit pearls, the full armor of suburban warfare. Her daughter, Madison, sat beside her looking uncomfortable and avoiding eye contact with everyone. The HOA president, a tired-looking elderly man named Robert, cleared his throat. We need to discuss the recent tensions in our community regarding the upcoming Morrison event. He wouldn't even look at me directly, just shuffled his papers nervously. Patricia stood up slowly, dramatically, and then she started to cry, not just tears, full-body shaking sobs that would have won her an Oscar. 18 years, she wailed. 18 years. I've lived in this neighborhood. I've organized every Halloween party for the children, every 4th of July barbecue, every charity yard sale. When Carl's wife died, she pointed at Carl, who looked down. I cooked meals for his family for 3 months. When the Johnsons had their house fire, I organized the fundraiser that raised $20,000. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Patricia was building her case like a prosecutor, and I was the defendant who'd already been found guilty. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, though I noticed her makeup remained perfectly intact. All I wanted, her voice cracked beautifully, was to give my daughter one special day, one pool party for her 18th birthday, her last birthday before college. And David, she turned to look at me, tears streaming. David called me a liar in front of everyone. The room erupted. Shame. Someone actually yelled, "How could you?" came from another corner. It was like being in a twisted version of a town hall meeting from the Salem witch trials. Carl stood up next, right on cue. Patricia helped my son when Emma died. She was the only one who showed up every day, not just with food, but with homework help, basketball practice, rides, everything. My boy wouldn't have graduated without her. His voice was thick with emotion, and that part seemed genuine. I don't understand how anyone could be so cruel to someone who gives so much. One by one, they stood up. Jennifer Wu talked about Patricia organizing her daughter's surprise Sweet 16 when they couldn't afford it. Mike Thompson credited Patricia with saving his marriage by recommending a counselor. 15 different people, 15 different stories of St. Patricia's generosity. It was coordinated, rehearsed, and devastatingly effective. May I speak? I finally asked when the testimonials paused. Robert nodded reluctantly. Patricia came to my property uninvited. She announced she'd already promised my pool to her daughter. Without asking me when I politely declined, she threatened me. Then she created fake evidence that I'd agreed and distributed it to everyone. That's not a misunderstanding. That's deliberate deception. Can you imagine? Patricia suddenly wailed, clutching her chest. Being a single mother, trying your best for your only child, and being called a deceiver, a liar. She swayed like she might faint, and 3 people rushed to steady her. Madison finally spoke up, her voice small. Mom, please stop. But Patricia was in full performance mode. Now you know what hurts the most. Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried through the entire room. Madison was so happy when I told her about the party. She said, Mom, it's just like when I was little. She remembers the old days when things were different, when we could just. She stopped herself, pressing her hand to her mouth. That was the second time she'd made a strange reference to the past. Mrs. Kim, who'd been silent until now, tilted her head slightly. I saw her eyes narrow just a fraction. She'd caught it too. Patricia recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. The costs of party venues these days are astronomical, not like the old days when I could just, when things were simpler, when this neighborhood felt like home. Her eyes went distant for a moment, staring at something none of us could see. Jake, the young tech guy, leaned over and whispered, Yo, this is weird. She keeps talking like she used to live somewhere else, but she's been in the same house since I was a kid. He was right. The way Patricia kept referencing the past, the way she talked about when things were different, it didn't add up. The meeting concluded with Robert strongly encouraging me to reconsider in the spirit of community harmony. The vote was 74-1. Only Mrs. Kim abstained, giving me a meaningful look as she did. As people filed out, they avoided eye contact with me. I'd been officially designated the neighborhood pariah. Back home at 10:30 p.m. I was too angry to sleep. If Patricia wanted to play dirty, I'd find out exactly who I was dealing with. I opened my laptop and started with basic searches. Patricia Morrison, plus our neighborhood name, a few HOA newsletter mentions from 4 years back. Patricia Morrison, HOA president. Some meeting minutes, nothing interesting. But then I remembered her strange comments about the past. Patricia Morrison foreclosure, plus our neighborhood name, and that's when my world tilted on its axis. The first search result made me spill coffee all over my desk. Local family loses home in foreclosure. Patricia and James Morrison, longtime residents of, and then my address, my exact address, lost their home to bank foreclosure after accumulating $280,000 in debt. The 5-bedroom property, famous in the neighborhood for its resort-style pool and annual Morrison family parties, was sold at auction. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Patricia used to own my house. She'd lived here, thrown parties here, raised her daughter here. I scrolled down and found a photo from happier times. Patricia, looking younger and genuinely happy, standing in front of my pool, with Madison, who couldn't have been more than 14, hugging the hibiscus tree, the same tree Patricia had stared at with such longing. Everything clicked into place. Her walking into my yard like she owned it because she once had her intimate knowledge of every corner because she'd lived here for years. The desperate need to throw her daughter's party here because this was where Madison had celebrated every birthday until they lost the house. Patricia wasn't just asking to use my pool. She was trying to reclaim a piece of her past, to give her daughter one last birthday in the home they'd lost. I sat back stunned. Patricia had lived in my house, lost it to foreclosure, and now she was desperate enough to lie, manipulate, and turn the entire neighborhood against me, just to spend a few hours in her old backyard. Suddenly, her unhinged behavior made perfect sense, but it also made her far more dangerous than I'd realized. Someone with nothing left to lose, except their memories, will do anything to hold on to them. What would you do with this information? Comment. Lock if you think I should secure my property. Drain if you think I should empty the pool completely. Or police if you think I should get law enforcement involved because my next move made Patricia go completely nuclear and live stream something. That would become her biggest mistake. Friday morning, 8 o'clock a.m. The truck from Pool Draining Services pulled up to my house, and I knew this would trigger an explosion, but I was done playing defense. If Patricia wanted to wage war over my property, her former property, then I'd remove the very thing she was fighting for, just routine maintenance. I told the pool technician need to check for cracks in the foundation. He nodded, used to homeowners, making up reasons. The real reason was simpler. No water meant no party, no liability, and no more ammunition. For Patricia's campaign, by 9 o'clock a.m., the industrial pumps were humming, and water was flowing out through massive hoses. The pool level dropped inch by inch, revealing the pristine blue tiles that Patricia had probably picked out herself years ago. I wondered how many birthday parties, how many family gatherings had happened in this very water, but that was her past, not mine. This was my house, now bought fair and square, and I had every right to maintain it however I wanted. 9:15 a.m. The scream that shattered the morning quiet could have woken the dead. No, 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 no. Patricia came running across the street in her bathrobe and slippers, phone clutched in her hand, face twisted in absolute horror. But it wasn't just panic. I saw it was grief, raw and desperate, like she was watching her memories drain away with the water. Everyone, look what David is doing. She held her phone up high and I realized with a sinking feeling that she was live streaming on social media. He's destroying the pool right before Madison's party. This is deliberate cruelty. The comments started flooding in immediately on her screen, hearts and angry faces popping up like popcorn. Patricia, this is routine maintenance. I'm checking for cracks. I kept my voice calm and professional, very aware that hundreds of people were now watching this unfold in real time. The pool technician looked between us nervously, clearly not paid enough for this level of drama. Everyone here that he admits he's destroying it. She spun the camera between the draining pool and my face. He's creating an environmental hazard. Those are chemicals going into our groundwater. Our children could be poisoned. Her voice kept climbing higher, more frantic with each word. Ma'am, the pool technician interjected, trying to help. This is just standard pool water, properly pH balanced and safe for disposal. We follow all environmental regulations. He showed his certification, but Patricia wasn't interested. In fact, lies. All lies. 500 people are watching this crime happen. She was right about one thing. The viewer count was climbing rapidly. I could see comments flying by on her screen. Oh my God. So petty, what a monster, poor Madison. But also some skeptical ones. Is he allowed to do that? Why is she in his yard? Then Patricia made the decision that would change everything. She dramatically held up her phone and announced, "I'm calling 911. This is a public safety emergency." I watched in disbelief as she actually dialed emergency services while still live streaming. "Patricia, don't do this. You're wasting emergency resources." But she'd already connected. 911. "Yes, my neighbor is draining toxic chemicals into the ground. The whole neighborhood is in danger. There are children playing nearby. He's creating an environmental disaster. Send someone now. Hazmat team EPA." Everyone. Her performance was Oscar-worthy, tears streaming down her face as she described the toxic waste pooling in my yard. Jake came running out of his house, his own phone, recording everything. "Dude, she's trending on the neighborhood. Watch page 3, different people are live streaming this." He showed me his screen. Patricia's meltdown was being captured from multiple angles, like some bizarre suburban documentary. Mrs. Kim stepped out onto her porch, shaking her head. Slowly, she'd seen a lot in her 70-plus years, but this level of hysteria over pool maintenance was clearly a new low. Even Carl had emerged from his house, but instead of rushing to Patricia's defense, he stood frozen in his driveway, watching his patron saint have a complete breakdown over chlorinated water. 9:45 a.m. The cavalry arrived. 3 police cars in a fire truck, sirens blaring, lights flashing. The entire neighborhood came out to watch. Patricia was still streaming, still performing for her audience. "Finally arrest him. He's poisoning our community." She ran toward the first officer, phone thrust forward like a weapon. The lead officer, a tired-looking man with kind eyes, surveyed the scene with the expression of someone who'd responded to way too many suburban drama calls. "We received a report of toxic waste dumping." His tone suggested he already knew this was going to be ridiculous. "Yes, he's destroying the pool and poisoning everything." Patricia gestured wildly at the half-empty pool where crystal-clear water was still visible. The pool technician handed the officer his permits and documentation without being asked. Clearly, he'd dealt with difficult customers before. The officer reviewed everything methodically. "Pool draining permit valid, business license valid, environmental compliance certificate valid." He even tested the water with a kit from his car. "Ma'am." He turned to Patricia, and his voice carried the weight of someone who'd hit his nonsense limit for the day. "This is completely legal pool maintenance. The water tests normal. Chlorine levels well within safe parameters. There's no environmental hazard here, but he's doing it to spite me, to ruin my daughter's party." Patricia's mask was slipping. The concerned citizen, worried about toxic waste, had morphed into a woman, enraged about a party venue. Furthermore, the officer pulled out his notepad, and I saw Patricia's face pale. "This is the 4th false emergency report you've made in 2 months. We have records." He flipped through pages. "A fire that was a barbecue, a break-in that was Amazon delivery, a drug deal that turned out to be Girl Scouts selling cookies, and now this." The live stream comments had completely changed direction. "Wait, she called the cops on Girl Scouts. This lady is insane." Poor David team. David, the court of public opinion, was swinging hard, and Patricia could see it happening on her own phone screen. "Ma'am, I need to warn you officially. One more false report, and you'll be facing criminal charges. Filing false police reports is a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 6 months in jail and substantial fines. This is your final warning." The officer's words carried across the quiet street, and every neighbor heard them clearly. Carl, who'd been Patricia's strongest supporter, took a step back toward his house for the first time since I'd moved in. He wasn't rushing to Patricia's defense. The cracks in her support system were showing. Patricia turned off her live stream, her face cycling through embarrassment, rage, and something that looked like grief. She walked to the edge of my pool, now more than half empty, and stared down at the receding water. "You know," she said quietly, but her voice carried in the morning air, "Madison learned to swim in this pool, right? There in the shallow end. She was 3 years old and terrified of water until she trailed off, lost in a memory." I couldn't see Mrs. Kim surprised. "Everyone by speaking up, Patricia dear. Maybe it's time to let go of the past." Her voice was gentle but firm, the kind of wisdom that comes from decades of watching people make mistakes. "Never," Patricia screamed, whirling around to face us all. "You don't understand. None of you understand what this place means, what was taken from us." She looked directly at me, and the hatred in her eyes was mixed with something else, desperation. "You'll pay for this, David. You don't know who you're messing with. I've been in this neighborhood longer than you. I know things. I know people, and I will make your life hell until you give me what I want." She stormed off, stumbling over her bathrobe, trying to maintain dignity while fleeing the scene of her public humiliation. Jake sidled up to me, grinning. "Bro, I screen recorded her entire live stream, got the false 911 call and everything. You know, just in case you need evidence later." Smart kid. He'd realized the same thing I had. Patricia had just handed me ammunition. 500 people had watched Patricia Morrison, former HOA president and neighborhood saint, make a false emergency call on live stream. She'd been officially warned by police about criminal charges, and she'd done it all on camera, creating evidence that couldn't be disputed or twisted. Patricia had made a crucial mistake, and she didn't even realize it yet. Quick poll time. What critical error did Patricia just make? Comment crime if you think the false report is now a criminal matter. Comment evidence if you think the live stream created undeniable proof, or comment both if you realize she just gave me everything I needed, because in the next chapter, I'd use this mistake to uncover a $47.00 secret that would destroy everything Patricia had built the week following the pool incident. Patricia shifted tactics from public spectacle to guerrilla warfare. Monday brought a citation for grass that measured 3.5 in instead of the regulation 3 in. Tuesday delivered a formal complaint about my window trim being inconsistent with neighborhood aesthetic standards. Wednesday featured a noise violation for excessive keyboard typing during business hours. By Thursday, I had received a notice about my car being parked too in over the property line into my own driveway. The harassment was meticulous, relentless, and clearly designed to break me through death by 1,000 paper cuts. "Enough," I muttered to myself Thursday evening, staring at the stack of HOA violations. "If she wants to use the rules as weapons, I'll use them as shields." Every homeowner had the right to review HOA financial records, and after Patricia's years as president, there had to be something worth finding. The question was whether I could find it before she buried me in fines and legal fees. Friday morning at the HOA office, I requested 5 years of financial records. The secretary, a nervous woman who kept glancing at her phone, handed over banker's boxes full of documents. "You have the right to review these here," she said quietly, "but Patricia usually comes by around noon." The warning was clear. I had 3 hours before facing another confrontation. I dove into the papers with the systematic approach of an architect, reviewing blueprints, income, expenses, budgets, receipts. Most of it was mind-numbingly normal. HOA dues, collected landscaping, paid pool maintenance for the community center, standard stuff. But then the patterns started emerging. 2019 showed community event expenses of $3. By 2022, it reached $21,000, nearly $50,000, over 4 years for community events. I cross-referenced with the neighborhood social media page, searching for these supposed events. The annual 4th of July barbecue. People brought their own food. The Halloween party, families donated candy and decorations. The spring garage sale that actually made money for the HOA. So where did $50 go? Every single expense was marked payable to Party Supplies, Inc., with the same authorizing signature, Patricia Morrison. "What are you doing here?" Patricia's voice cut through my concentration like a blade. She stood in the doorway with Carl behind her, blocking the exit. The clock showed 11:45. She'd come early, exercising my rights as a homeowner, I replied calmly, though my heart was racing. I continued photographing documents with my phone, making sure she could see me doing it. "These financial records are fascinating. Reading Carl, get him out of here. He's trespassing." Her voice had an edge of panic now, and I knew I was on to something big. But Carl didn't move. Instead, he looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "I can't. Patricia, he has the right to view these records. It's in the HOA bylaws." For the first time since I'd known him, Carl wasn't immediately jumping to Patricia's defense. The pool incident had shaken his faith in his neighborhood. "Saint, whose side are you on?" Patricia's mask slipped completely, revealing raw fury underneath. "After everything I've done for you, for your family." But Carl just mumbled something about needing to get back to work and left. Patricia watched him go with the expression of someone watching their kingdom crumble back home. I spread the photographed documents across my dining table and really started digging. $50 to Party Supplies, Inc. I searched for the company online. Nothing. No website, no business listing, no social media presence for a company supposedly providing party supplies. For 4 years, they had 0 digital footprint. So I searched the address listed on the invoices. Instead, the results made me sit back in shock. ABC Debt Collection Agency. "We buy your debt, you buy your freedom." The pieces clicked together like tumblers in a lock. Patricia hadn't been paying a party supply company. She'd been funneling HOA funds to a debt collector, the same debt collector that would have been chasing her for that $280 she owed when she lost her house. My phone rang. My lawyer friend from college, who'd helped me with the house closing. "David, heard you're having some neighborhood drama. What's going on?" I gave him the short version, including the live-streamed false police report. "Wait, hold up," he interrupted. "She called 911, claiming false crimes on livestream with 500 witnesses." He actually laughed. "David, do you understand what she did? Filing a false police report is a misdemeanor. It's an actual crime, and she created video evidence of herself committing it. That's beautiful. It's like robbing a bank and live streaming your face the entire time." "So what does that mean for me?" I asked, still processing the financial fraud I'd uncovered. "It means you have leverage, massive leverage. Get the official police report from that incident with that video Jake saved, and the police report. You have documented proof of her committing A crime she can't harass you anymore without risking prosecution. Oh, and David, I used to get fined by my HOA for having orchids on my balcony. Guess who was president? Then the pieces kept falling into place. Patricia had a history of using her position for personal vendettas. After we hung up, I stared at the evidence spread before me. $47. Zero stolen from the community, fake company documents, embezzlement to pay personal debts. And now I understood why. Patricia was so desperate to use my pool, my yard, her former home she'd stolen from everyone to try to save it, and failed the house. Still got foreclosed and throwing Madison's 18th birthday party. There was her twisted way of pretending she'd never lost it at all, but I wasn't done investigating. The timing of the thefts lined up too perfectly with her foreclosure she'd started. Stealing right after losing the house, probably hoping to buy it back. When that failed, she just kept taking the money. The question was, did anyone else know? And more importantly, how many other financial crimes was Patricia hiding? I compiled everything into organized folders: the fake company documents, the embezzlement evidence, the false police report, the live stream video. Patricia had spent years building her reputation as the neighborhood's guardian angel while secretly robbing everyone blind. She'd turned the HOA into her personal piggy bank, betraying every single person who'd stood up for her at that meeting. Carl, who'd defended her so passionately, had donated to those same community funds she'd stolen. Jennifer Wu, who'd praised Patricia's generosity, had paid HOA dues that went straight into Patricia's debt payments. The $47. Zero wasn't just theft, it was betrayal on a massive scale, and now I had the proof to expose it all. The only question was how to do it for maximum impact. Patricia had publicly humiliated me, turned my neighbors against me, and tried to steal my peace of mind. Now it was time to return the favor, but with something far more devastating than social media drama. The truth challenge time. How do you think Patricia will react when exposed? Type cry if you think she'll play victim again. Type run if you think she flee the meeting, or type crazy if you think she'll do something absolutely insane. Because what happened at the emergency HOA meeting would become the most talked about event in neighborhood history. Thursday, 7 p.m. The emergency HOA meeting had drawn the biggest crowd in neighborhood history. Over 150 people crammed into a room meant for half that number. Word had spread that something major was happening, and nobody wanted to miss it. Patricia sat at the head table in her power position, radiating confidence. Despite the recent pool incident, her daughter, Madison, sat beside her, still unaware of what was about to unfold. The poor girl had no idea her mother had built their entire life on a foundation of lies and stolen money. Tonight, Patricia stood up with presidential authority. We need to discuss removing toxic elements from our community. Some people, she looked directly at me, don't understand what it means to be good neighbors. They create conflict, refuse to participate, and actively work against community harmony. The crowd murmured agreement, though I noticed several people, including Carl and Mrs. Kim, remained silent. Robert, the elderly HOA president, cleared his throat nervously. Actually, Patricia, we have several items on the agenda. David Mitchell has requested time to present some concerns about HOA finances. The way Patricia's face twitched told me she hadn't expected this. She'd probably assumed I'd be too intimidated to show up, let alone present evidence. I stood up slowly, laptop in hand, and walked to the front. The projector was already set up. I'd arrived early to make sure everything was ready. Good evening, everyone. I know many of you think I'm the villain here, but I'd like to share some information that might change your perspective. The first slide appeared. HOA Financial Summary, 2019 through 2022, over the past 4 years. $47,000 from HOA funds went to something called community events through a company called Party Supplies Inc. I let that number sink in. Several people shifted uncomfortably. 47,000 was serious money. Can anyone here remember a community event that would have cost that much? Silence. Patricia's smile remained fixed, but her hands gripped the table edge. We had many events. The 4th of July celebrations, Halloween parties, spring festivals, all of which were potluck style, where families brought their own supplies. I interrupted. I checked the social media history. Every event post says, "Bring a dish to share audations. Welcome." So where did $47,000 actually go? The next slide showed my business search results. Party Supplies Inc. No results found. This company doesn't exist. It never has. The murmuring grew louder. People were starting to pay attention now. Really pay attention. Patricia stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. How dare you accuse me of whatever you're implying? I served this community for years. I sacrificed my time, my energy. Her voice was climbing, taking on that hysteric college I'd heard. By the pool, I'm not done, I said calmly. Clicking to the next slide, it showed the registered address for Party Supplies Inc. and underneath the Google search result. Connecting the dots, and Patricia knew it. That's a mistake, a clerical error. But her face had gone pale, and Madison was staring at her mother with growing alarm. "Mom," the girl said quietly, "what's going on?" The next slide was the killing blow. Patricia's foreclosure notice from 3 years ago showing the $280,000 debt. Patricia used to own my house. She lost it to foreclosure 3 years ago, and starting immediately after, HOA funds began flowing to a fake company at a debt collection address. $47,000 of your money stolen to pay her personal debts. The room erupted. People were shouting, standing up, pointing at Patricia. Carl looked devastated. He'd defended her, believed in her, and she'd stolen from him. Wanted to give back like Patricia did. She stole from me when I was grieving. Lies, all lies, Patricia screamed, but the evidence was right there on the screen. Then my lawyer friends stood up from the back of the room where he'd been waiting. Good evening, everyone. I'm David's legal counsel, and I'm here to inform you that we've already forwarded this evidence to the district attorney's office. Embezzlement of HOA funds is a felony. Additionally, he held up a folder we have video evidence of Mrs. Morrison filing a false police report, which is a separate criminal charge. Patricia's carefully constructed world was collapsing in real time. Madison was sobbing, now finally understanding why her mother had been so desperate about the pool. "Party Mom, you stole from everyone to try to get our house back." "I did it for us," Patricia wailed, completely losing control. "That house was ours. 20 years we lived there. You took your first steps in that kitchen. You learned to swim in that pool. Every birthday, every Christmas, every memory we have is in that house." She was ugly, crying now, mascara streaming down her face. "I just wanted to give you one last birthday there, one last memory, before you leave for college. The tragedy of it might have been touching, if not for the $47,000 she'd stolen. People weren't in a forgiving mood. Someone shouted, "You could have just asked to use the pool like a normal person." Another voice added, "Instead, you robbed us all." Patricia's eyes went wild. Darting around the room like a trapped animal, she grabbed her phone with shaking hands. "You're all against me, every single one of you, but I know the truth. I know what really happened." She was dialing while ranting. "You want to destroy me, fine, but I'm taking everyone down with me." "Mom, stop." Madison tried to grab the phone, but Patricia shoved her own daughter away. The girl stumbled, and several people gasped. Patricia didn't even notice she was already connected to emergency services. 911. "Yes. I'm at the Willowbrew Way meeting, and they're attacking me, the whole room. They're threatening me. Someone has a weapon. Send everyone." She was screaming into the phone while backing toward the exit. "They're trying to kill me. Help." Jake immediately started recording. Half the room pulled out their phones. Patricia Morrison, exposed as an embezzler, was committing another false police report in front of over 100 witnesses. The irony was perfect. She was so used to lying that she couldn't stop, even when caught. "Patricia," Robert said firmly, "put the phone down. You're making things worse." But she was beyond reason now, beyond anything but pure panic and rage. "Shut up, all you. That house is mine. The pool is mine. Everything is mine." She was backing toward the door, still screaming into the phone about imaginary weapons and threats. "I'm going to sue every single one of you. I'll get my house back. I'll be." The police arrived in record time. The station was only 5 minutes away. The same tired officer from the pool incident walked in, saw Patricia mid-meltdown with a phone in her hand, and his expression said, "Everything, ma'am. We need to talk. Arrest them." Patricia pointed at me, at the crowd, at everyone. "They attacked me. They threatened me. Ma'am. I can see everyone sitting calmly in their seats. You're the only one screaming, and didn't. I specifically warn you about false reports." He looked around the room, taking in the projection screen still showing embezzlement evidence, the crying teenager, and the 100+ witnesses, all recording on their phones. To be investigated. We also have video of Mrs. Morrison making another false emergency call just now, violating your previous warning. Reports and pending investigation for embezzlement. As they led her away in handcuffs, she kept screaming about the house being hers, the pool being hers, demanding that someone call her lawyer. Madison sat in a chair, surrounded by neighbors trying to comfort her, looking completely shattered. Carl approached me as people filed out. "David, I owe you an apology," I thought. I donated $5,000 to the community fund because Patricia said it would help other families in crisis. She took my grief money, as Kim patted my shoulder as she passed. "You did the right thing, young man. Sometimes the truth hurts, but lies hurt more." Even Robert, the HOA president, who'd been so weak before, shook my hand. "We'll need a new treasurer who actually understands finances." Interested. 2 weeks later, my pool was full again, the water sparkling in the afternoon sun. I'd added some lotus plants in one corner, creating a small natural oasis that softened the harsh concrete edges. The doorbell rang. Jake stood there with his laptop. "Dude, you've got to see this." Patricia's live stream went viral, 2 million views. She's officially the internet's newest pool. "Karen, there's even a remix of her 911 calls." "What about Madison?" I asked, genuinely concerned for the girl who'd been collateral damage in her mother's breakdown. "Staying with her aunt, actually." Jake hesitated. "She wanted to know if she could come see the hibiscus tree sometime. Said she wanted to say goodbye properly to the house." I nodded immediately. The sins of the mother. shouldn't fall on the daughter, Carl texted. Later, BBQ at mine Sunday. You in BTW neighborhood voted you as new HOA treasurer. Literally nobody else wanted to touch the finances after. Patricia, we trust you. I sat by my pool that evening, watching the lotus flowers bloom and coyish swim in lazy circles. Patricia's house across the street had a for sale sign in the yard. Sometimes I still found it hard to believe the woman who terrorized the neighborhood with her fake community spirit was now facing years in prison. All because she couldn't let go of a house that was no longer hers. Funny thing about pools, I said to myself, watching the water ripple, you can drain them, fill them, maintain them, but trust once that's drained, it's gone forever. The lesson was clear: never demand what isn't yours, never file false police reports, especially on live stream, and most importantly, greed can transform victims into criminals faster than you'd think. If this story hit 10,000 likes, maybe I'd share what Madison and I found buried under that old hibiscus tree when she came to say goodbye, because sometimes the most interesting secrets